Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Good Enough Mums Club podcast, where sometimes being good enough is best.
Just before we get started, we do sometimes swear in the podcast, and today is one of those days. So if it gets a little bit sweary while you're listening, you might not want to do it in front of little ones.
How will I ever be good enough? When will the loneliness fade? When will it fade away? Why does it have to be so tough? Hard as I try, I'll never be good enough.
My name is Jade Samuels.
And I'm Emily Beecher, and we are the hosts of the Good Enough Mums Club podcast.
Every week, we'll initiate a mum into the club and explore the complexities and realities of modern motherhood.
You can join the club or find out more about the musical or future episodes of the podcast by following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching Good Enough Mums Club. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, rate and review wherever you listen.
This week's guest is the amazing blogger, influencer, and mum, Tinuke Bernard. The Good Enough team all came out of this call raving about how joyous it was. We hope you love it as much as we did.
It was such a great and important conversation. We caught up over Zoom during lockdown with Tinuke in her home in the Hertfordshire countryside, although she is most definitely a Londoner at heart.
Let's get into it. Hello, Tinuke. How are you today?
Doing really well. Really happy to be here.
I'm so excited you're here.
Can you do me a favour, lovely? Can you just set the scene of where you are?
In life or in my lovely, humble abode?
I mean, I'm all about us going down the metaphorical route as well, lovely. But for now, can you just give me your physical whereabouts in the world?
So at the moment, I am in North Hart. So I'm a Londoner, forever in my heart, but I live about an hour out of London at the moment in a tiny little village in Hertfordshire countryside, which is awesome fun, but I miss London.
We're going to kick off now with a little round of Would You Rather. It's just quick fire, just to get us going, just to get the brain flowing. Be as quick as you can. We say this, no one's ever quick, but try as quick as you can. Okay, Tinuke, I'll start off. Would you rather step in Lego or step in pee?
P.
Parenting books or parenting podcasts?
Podcasts.
Succulent or spider plant?
Oh, succulent.
Oh, nice. If you had to watch your child do a TikTok dance all day, savage or renegade?
Renegade.
What's worse in your hair? Baby sick or baby pee?
Ooh, sick.
Yeah.
Chunks.
So gross.
But you can all picture it.
I can feel it.
Even if it's not chunks, you know, that milk, because the
milky
smell does not go away.
It stays all day.
Oh God, yeah, awful. Okay, Desert Island Discs, but you can keep only one.
Yeah.
Alicia Keys, Song in a Minor, or Destiny's Child, Writings on the Wall.
Ooh, Alicia Keys. That was my jam. Yeah.
It was mine as well. It came out when I was 15 and still now. Jane Doe is one of my daughter's favourite songs. You'll be in the car and just go to swear down.
So good.
Love it.
Would you rather get stuck in a lift with Gina Ford or Super Nana?
I'm going to go with Gina.
Excellent.
Yeah. No real reason for it. Just Gina.
Yeah. Gina. What's the first word you think of when you think of the word mum?
Oh, I know they said boss, and that really freaked me out because I hate the word mum boss. So it is boss, but probably because I really hate the phrase mum boss. Yeah.
Not because there's any sort of affinity for you between.
No positive connotation, just really hate the phrase mum boss.
So Tinuke, we've all had a journey into parenting. What was your journey like specifically to becoming a mum?
Oh, so I became a mum at what people would probably consider now as quite young. It's not in the bigger scheme of things. It's no like Little House on the Prairie 13-year-old, but you know, I was 23 and
I was 24 when I had my daughter.
Yeah.
So
I saw it as perfectly normal, a good solid age to start a family. But I think everyone else saw it as, oh my gosh, your life is over. And that kind of like as much as you try to block that out and stay positive and be like, no, this is amazing, it's awesome, it obviously starts to creep in. So I think the more and more pregnant I got, the scarier it got. It didn't help that I got made redundant when I was 4 months pregnant.
God.
To the point that if I, in hindsight, found out that if they kept me on for even one more week, they would have had to have paid my entire maternity. And obviously they knew this.
Oh.
So small company, don't blame them. Husband and wife team made me redundant. So I had that thing of, okay, I don't have any permanent job. I just moved back from China like 6 months beforehand. So I had no savings. I had no job. I was temping with my pregnant belly, just trying to do anything to keep going. And so motherhood became this really scary thing. The enormity of, okay, I'm going to have this human being to look after. I'm too young because this is what everyone else has been telling me. And all this responsibility, can I actually do this? So I think it was quite nerve-wracking. And that really played on the first couple of years of just trying to think, am I even, a good enough mum? Can I actually do this? Should I give this baby up for adoption? Is this going to, should this baby go live with my mum and dad because I'm just not going to be able to do this? So it was, really nerve-wracking and quite scary at the beginning.
That's really interesting because it was quite similar.
Really?
I was at drama school training to be an actor, and when I got pregnant, and everybody, all of my family were like, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, no one understood it. And I was just like, I'm having a baby.
It's not the end of the world, right?
Do you know what I mean? It's, for one, if we're going to go into the science of it, it's essential for the to keep the population going that I have this baby. Yeah. But more than that, I can be more than just a mum. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean my life's over because I've had a baby.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, you said it was for the first couple of years. Was there a point that you can sort of, looking back, see where you were like, no, I've got this?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think maybe when I've been back at work for a while. So my eldest was born in 2008. So when the crash happened while I just really quickly after I'd had my child. So whereas I thought I'd just go back into work and just get on with things, there were no jobs. So you're like, oh, well, this is interesting. So she was she's probably like nearly 18 months old before I got my actual proper job again. So maybe like a year into that, and I'm like, just realised one day on the way home, and I'm like, okay, I've done a full day in Canary Wharf. I'm on my way to the childminder. I've got this. I know what I'm doing for dinner. I know what's going on tomorrow. And it's like, you're rocking this. You have this, and that's kind of like, I'm owning my shit. And there was that moment like, okay, this isn't so bad. And all those people who thought I wasn't getting anywhere, look where I work now. It's not, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
And then how long was it before you had your second?
I was 32 when I had the next one. So there's a massive gap. 9 years later, I had the second. So it was a whole different experience and probably just as scary, but for a whole different host of reasons. So yeah, massive gap, not intentional. My body was not playing ball at all. So it was as soon as we kind of agreed between me and my partner that we probably wouldn't have any more kids, that this, it's not going to be us. We're going to have this one child. And God laughed and went, haha, you might want to go take a check, go take a pregnancy test and see what I thought about you saying you're not going to have any more babies. So yeah, number 2 came along as a lovely surprise.
Oh, and what's the hardest thing about motherhood for you?
The hardest thing about motherhood for me would be that there is no rule book. Not that I tend to play by the rules, and I'm definitely a skimmer of them, but at least knowing that you're on the right track. So I find it really hard, not because you kind of know that every action you have is going to have this lifelong repercussion on your child. Whether it's, do you give them that extra jammy dodger they want? And then like my little one's got little rotten teeth and she's only 3. And they're blaming it on my booby milk, which really offends me, but I'll leave the dentist to it. But every time I go, they go, it's because you're still breastfeeding. I've stopped now, but I breastfed till quite late, and they said that's why her teeth went rotten. So things like, should I stop breastfeeding? Am I good? The WHO says it's really good for them. The dentist says stop it. Should you start overthinking everything you do, and at one minute you're looking for all the expert advice, and the next minute it's very laissez-faire, and you're like, oh, let's just get on with it. And then you start doubting that, like, oh my gosh, the fact that I let her play in the mud, does that mean she's going to end up getting, some weird disease later on and it's all my fault? So it's that overthinking it, because there is no rule book and you just have to hope that every decision you make is the right decision.
Yeah. Did you find that easier with the second?
I think I did, but with the second, it's quite interesting. I wasn't the main caregiver. My other half is. So I went back to work when she was like 4 months old. So I was like, you do it. And like, if anything goes wrong, it's your fault. I wasn't there. I was at work all day. So it's all on you.
Okay. That's incredible though. That, like, how did he feel about being the main caregiver? Was he completely okay with that?
Yeah, it was his choice. It was his decision. So it was really interesting because he would first admit he was not hands-on with our first. They were like quite detached in a way. So she doesn't even like me. I would take her out, but she doesn't like me. She likes you. And I'm like, well, maybe because she's only ever really spent time with me. But with the second one, a lot of it is price as well. We were looking at the price of nurseries and things around here. And it's basically everyone, seems to have their own nannies and stuff up here. And it's not something we could ever afford. So when we went to a nursery, we looked around, it looked great. And, the 1,200 plus bill comes. And it's like, yeah, we're not doing this because I'm at home. I'll do this. I've got this. I can look after a baby. It can't be that hard. I'll do this. And we thought it would last maybe a couple of months and come to his senses. But yeah, he did it for a good couple of years, 2.5 years, with him mainly, being the sole caregiver while I went to work.
And I was going to ask, how has that affected his parenting? Is he much more confident with this child?
Yeah, so confident. They've got a stronger bond. She listens to him and takes my advice as, my words are more like, maybe I'll listen to my mum about that. Whereas you just have to mention something to her dad and she's all about it. So it's definitely had an effect on how he parents and how the kids listen to him as well.
How was that for you, going back and having your career being your focus?
Part of me was really excited that I had a job to come back to because I didn't have that with the first time. But I feel that I was very scared of kind of losing my job or not having it. And to be fair, I fell pregnant like 2 months into starting this new job. So already like, feeling like, oh my gosh, the guilt was there that I need to show that they weren't wrong for hiring me or for keeping me on. So I kind of felt a lot of it was pressure to be in work, which to some extent I regret because I missed a lot of my baby being a baby and you'll never get that back. But I think it's really important to show your kids who you are. And I'm someone who loves to work and I love, knowing that I'm creating and doing and helping. So especially for the older one, that she saw that, okay, not everything hasn't changed because this new baby's come. My mum still goes to work. My mum still does things was, quite important to me to see that, we can have it all, but we can do more than, we don't have to put our lives on hold when we have babies.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because you're made to feel guilty if you want to go to work and you're made to feel guilty if you want to stay at home.
Yeah.
How about we just let women decide what they want to do?
Exactly.
Exactly. You can change your mind, right?
Yes.
Like you can choose one thing and then change your mind and be like, actually, that's not what I want anymore.
This is it. Or you can drop out for 6 months, it's never too late. Not saying you're gonna, but you might decide, actually, do you know what? I don't, like you say, you don't know what's going to happen. This job could come to an end. You could go, I can have 6 months out now with my kids.
Yeah.
Like there's no prescription
for sure.
to how you parent.
And that's basically what I did. Like last year in that same job that I kind of stuck with. And a lot of it is I feel I did stick with it because I got pregnant at the very beginning of it. And I do like trying to give something my best shot. But it turned out it was not the job for me. It got really sour really quickly towards the end of it. And I decided to quit. I had no job to go to. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to actually spend some time with my kids. And
oh wow, I didn't even know that. This is not me probing or anything. I didn't know. That's really interesting.
I did that.
There's the
and it was amazing. It was really weird for everyone because no one was used to having me at home. But I did that. I took the time out to just be, and it was amazing.
That leads nicely actually into. I was going to ask, why did you start to blog? Was that because of your job ending, or is it something that you've done always?
So I have blogged. This will be my 10th year in about a month. So I've blogged under Circus Mums since my daughter was really little. She was a toddler, if even that. And then this year in June, I decided to turn around. it's something I've been thinking about for years, but I kind of took the plunge and went, I'm going to completely cut ties with that blog and start a brand new one that's kind of less child focused, less family focused, and more me as an adult. Because to be honest, I kind of got sick and tired of, because it was called Circus Mums, the only PR things I ever got, any brand deals seemed to only want to do with like children's products. Even now, it's like, do you want to try out this pacifier? Well, no, I don't, because my kids are how old, you know? And they couldn't see past, you know, you being a parent. And I'm like, I am a parent. I love being a parent, but I also like watching adult films, not just being sent to the Disney ones. I enjoy talking about ethics and houseplants and, you know, God knows what else. And I couldn't do that on the old blog, but I started the first blog because I had no friends with children. And I was no one to share this with. And it was really, really isolating. All my friends were in full-time work. I'm there, you know, talking about poo, you know, the kids floating poops in the bath or whatever. And they're like sitting there going, ooh, that's just disgusting. And I was like, no, I need another parent who understands this. What do you do when you just spent the last 10 minutes bathing your child and they decide to take a poop in the bath, you know?
Yeah.
Because they do this rubbish, don't they?
All the time.
And you're just sitting there going, really? Do I sieve it out? Do I have to now rebath you? What's the deal with this? So it was
or scoop them up and throw the shower on them quickly as they scream, going, it's your own fault you pooed.
Exactly. There's all these ridiculous things.
It's like the bath to clean up the bath is like the worst feeling in the world.
Oh, it just gets you angry, right? And I had no one to discuss this with. And one of my friends, Rena, she's a fashion blogger. She does a lot more than that now, but at the time she was a fashion blogger. And we'd gone to dinner and we were talking. I was regaling her in my stories of like poopy nappies and things. And she goes, why don't you blog? Which was probably a really polite way of saying, stop telling me this.
Write it down.
There's a whole community out there of other mums who would love to hear this stuff. So I did that, and I've made such amazing lifelong friends from it. And, you know, going to things like Brit Mums, and that's where I saw, you know, like the Good Enough Mums play, which stuck with me all these years. Had my Good Enough Mums pin, and, you know, it was a great conversation starter when you went to work and explained what it meant, you know, and all those things came from blogging. So I'm so happy that I did blog.
Well, do you want to talk to us, because you've got a really exciting influencer directory going on at the moment, and it's, well, I'll let you talk about it, but it is very much needed in the world, and I can say that with my former marketing hat on.
Yeah, so that was kind of this weird thing where I put it onto Instagram in May, saying that, look, I want to do a new list. Like, it was a list I had on Circus Mums, normally a really small post of maybe, you know, 40 different influencers, and at the time I'd only do bloggers. But the world has changed a lot now, and, you know, influencers are just as prominent as bloggers. You don't need to own your own website and, you know, blog to kind of, you know, have a place on the internet. So I asked for influencers, expecting maybe like 10 or 20 that I hadn't heard of, and I had over 350 influencers sent to me, 250 I think it was at the time, actually.
Wow, that's amazing.
And you're like, wow, okay, now what do I do with this? And I remember being really like just floored by the amount of people, and I was like, I can't just do a blog post on this, it will take too long and it's just going to be overwhelming. So this was just around the beginning of June when George Floyd was murdered, and people were just starting to get their heads around Black Lives Matter, and a brand must have put out a post about, here's 10, no, not even 10, I think like 3 black influencers to follow. And we're like, okay, that's great, but there's so many more. There are so many more. Why are there only 3? So another influencer was like, hey, there were so many more. They tagged me in it, and I went, I can give you 250 off the bat. I can do that for you. And she goes, if you do it, I'll post it. And this was Sarita Fontaine. And I took that as a personal challenge to do it then and there that night. Like, right, I will do this. I'm going to put it on the CSV file. I'm going to, you know, give people some sort of, you know, I'll break it up and give them some kind of subject header, and I'm going to do this. So it was raw. It was, you know, scrappy, but I put it out there. And she was true to her word. She tweeted it and shared it, and everyone else started tweeting it and sharing it. And I woke up to, I think, over like 200 reshares on Instagram. I was like, what on earth have I done? It's really,
But it shows that it was needed because it wasn't performative. It was an actual action to do something, and that's what we should be doing realistically in the movement.
exactly.
So well done, Tinuke.
Thank you.
But I also think from, and Tinuke, I think I've reached out to you about this before.
Yeah.
You know, I have sat in so many marketing meetings and they put up this big slide on the screen of like, these are the influencers you should work with. And the only diversity is one of the white people has brown hair instead of blonde.
Oh,
like that.
Yeah.
And you say to them like, okay, maybe not so blonde, maybe not so white.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 8, like what happens?
Yeah.
And they just look at you like, well, who do you know?
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. It's insulting to everyone.
I was going to say, I think you're right. As much as they go, well, who do we know? And a lot of the times the PRs can't even recommend other people to the brands because they don't know. And it's not as easy as, as searching on Google black blogger, because we're not putting that as our part of our taglines or our SEO. So you're not finding us. You're going to find a white person with black hair, most likely.
But it's tokenism, isn't it? It's like recently a comedian, I know, Dane Baptiste.
Oh, yes.
He was awarded, did you see the tweet?
Richard
He was awarded for something. And they posted a picture of Richard Blackwood for him. Yeah. And it's just turning around and saying Richard Blackwood's the only black comedian that we have in this country. Yeah. And that's disgusting. Yeah. And he handled it brilliantly. He turned it into a joke and made the joke on them. Mm-hmm. But it is really sad, isn't it, really, when you think about it like that?
But I think that's on a bigger level. And what happens is these marketing decisions and these PR decisions are made every single day. Mm-hmm. You know, most people working in these departments are white. Yep. And they are not necessarily in touch. They definitely have that attitude of, I am our audience, which is always the biggest mistake you can make, right? You are not your audience. You are not your target market.
Exactly.
But they don't know where to go.
No. Mm-mm. And brands have been using it. PRs have been using it. It was really nice and heartwarming when I started getting emails in going, thank you for doing this. I've been saying to my company that we needed to have done this years ago and it's never happened. I'm using your list. I have booked 2 people for a campaign. And I'm like, yes. And partly I'm going, pay me. The other part of me going, this is never
you should definitely be monetizing it.
You should. Definitely.
But at the same point, I've been having this argument with people ever since, because part of me is like, yes, this could be a thing. Maybe I do need to have this behind a paywall. And the other half of it is, no, this was never for the brands or the PRs. It was always for people who look like me to be able to find other people who look like me, or people who don't look like me, but people who want to have a diverse feed and want to go, why, I live in a diverse neighborhood. Why is my feed full of, middle class, blonde haired people wearing Breton stripes? They want to have,
No, jokes aside, though, when we started this podcast, Emily and I were like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. You know what I mean? I just can't have a conveyor belt of women who look like the mummy blogging, Instagramming, podcasting world, because it's boring. I've heard them stories. Yeah. I want to know someone else's story.
Totally.
I also don't want polished stories. I don't want stories that are where people are afraid to tell the truth because it might impact their brands, their brand partnerships. I want messy. I want motherhood is messy.
Totally. And I want brands who like that I'm messy. And I think that's another reason why I've started again, because on Circus Mums, I didn't always talk the whole truth. So there was never any lies, but, I wouldn't share the more messy parts of life because I was always scared that, I hardly ever get any brands coming to me anyway. And I don't want to scare the ones that do want to work me away. And now I'm like, well, no, actually, I want the ones who like that I'm a bit messy, or like that I find, plants just as interesting as talking about, I don't know, curry goats or whatever. I want them to know me for who I am. And if they want to work with me, that's great. If they don't like it, then they're not the ones for me.
Yeah, but that's one of the great things about your blog is just the variation of content, I think. And the puff puff recipe has the Nigerian puff puff recipe is genius. So nice. That's one thing you should all go and find. Highly recommend. Shout out to the puff puff recipe.
I love that you've broke away from that that clean cut look of influencing and blogging, because I don't, you know what I mean? What are we influencing if we're not going to influence the truth?
Yeah.
But what stereotypes and things about yourself that you see in the media do you hate? That, because I think that's what makes us stick away from, we need to be clean cut and we need to be perfect because we don't want to fit into that stereotype. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
So I don't have, if it's about me personally, not just mummy blogging, I think what frustrated me a bit, and it's not a bad thing, and it's a lovely like title to hold, but I kind of thought I don't deserve it and it's not me. When I did the Black UK influencers list, and when I started seeing, where are people coming from? Where's the traffic coming from? Loads of people were adding me on lists for Black Lives Matter activists, or, if you want a good BLM resource, use this list. And I was like, oh, now that's a really heavy hat to wear. I do believe in activism. I do believe Black Lives Matter. I do fight for this cause. But if you are coming through to my site because someone has told you that I'm a BLM activist to follow, you are going to be so disappointed because that's not what my content is, and it's not what my content's about. So I probably have a high bounce rate because of it, because I'm on all these lists, because I've now been like branded this BLM activist, and I don't deserve that hat because I'm not doing that work. I'd love to do that work, and I think even you can go, okay, I'm a Black person, so you know about Black Lives Matter. I don't have that knowledge. I need to educate myself more on what's going on to kind of feel comfortable waving that flag. There are so many people out there, whether it's Nova Reed or Akala, all these people who have done the work and they deserve that. I don't. So yeah, that's the stereotype that I hope will go just as fast as it came, so that I can focus on my puff recipes and stuff in peace and learn about BLM as I go along.
But then I suppose that's like, this is the thing about the movement in itself. People assuming because you've put a list together of influencers and you're a Black woman that you're an activist. Yeah. How about you just wanted to put a list together to help? Like it's there's a lot of responsibility, I suppose, on Black people specifically during these times, and it's not fair. They don't need that responsibility.
They never asked for it.
They don't need. This is what I'm saying. Do the work. Yeah. Don't make them your teachers. Don't make them responsible for how you feel about things.
Exactly.
It's not their job.
Exactly that.
And do you feel that more? Do you think living in the countryside where it's not as diverse as London?
Yeah. But I become the spokesman for everything that is Black. Yeah, 100%. And a lot of the time you kind of have to caveat your opinions and let them know, I do not speak for all Black people. My opinion or what I do, and it is, you feel like you're going out and being the ambassador, that your kids must be extra well behaved, that you have to be extra well polished, because if you go out like, I'm in a trackie at the moment. If I go to the bakery, and I was going to go to the bakery before this call, and I was like, oh, but I don't want to get changed, because if I go in this, I'll be like, oh, Black people, not Tinuke, not I am the one that's dressed like this or doing this, but it's Black people don't care about what they look like, and it's not that. It's just me being me, or me being a woman, or me being Tinuke, whatever. So I do feel there's this extra pressure to perform in a certain way or meet certain expectations, and I'm not going to. So sorry.
It's really interesting though.
Don't apologize. Yeah, don't apologize at all. At all, because if a white person was to go to in their tracksuit, no one would even bat an eyelid. They'd be doing street style loungewear. Yeah. So don't even worry about it, Tinuke. Seriously.
But I think it's really an interesting topic, especially around the kids having to behave, and that's one of the characters in the show we've rewritten. And that's what she's struggling with. And that came out of, all of our workshops that we did before, and all of the conversations I had, with Black and brown women up and down the country. It was always, I feel like my kid has to be the best behaved kid in the room.
For sure.
Like, and especially for mums of boys, they were, that was the thing. So when, I always find it really interesting when we write something into the script and someone says, this is how I feel in real life. I'm always reminded, like, at least, we've been talking to people, so we know it is, but just, I don't think people realize is how much that pressure of sort of having to feel like, okay, my kids have to be, well-dressed or pulled together or best behaved.
At all times. And it's drummed into you. And it's drummed into you from whether it's your grandparents from the Windrush generation trying to prove that they fit in just as well and going out in your Sunday best because you're already belittled and thought less of because of the racism. And that then affects, their kids, and their kids now telling us the same thing. But on a simpler level, we see it to be true. If, there's a higher rate of Black children being expelled from schools, so higher, all these things. I warn my child she just turned 12, But I'm already having those discussions with her. If you go out and your friends are taking drugs, you can't. If they're trying to, shoplift or do something, these things are wrong anyway. You shouldn't shoplift. But whereas they'll get a tap on the knuckles and sent home, you won't. You'll be in the back of that police car. If you're naughty at school, you're going to be seen as being aggressive or being disruptive in a way that your white peers are going to be seen as just, having a laugh. You cannot afford to give them an excuse to categorize you and put you in a box and then, criminalize you, because that's what's going to happen. So they have, you do have to kind of tell the kids you need to be, 100% at all times, and don't give anyone an excuse to see you as anything less than perfect. And that's a lot to put on a child's head.
It's such a shame because, like, specifically boys, there's the, black boy joy. It just gets dragged out of them from such a young age. Yeah. And, like, if I'm going to be brutally honest, when I had my daughter, it sounds bad, I was happy it was a girl, because I just didn't know if I could raise, because my daughter, I'm mixed race, my daughter's dad's black. She's very fair skinned, but she's essentially more black than she's white. And I just didn't know if I could raise a black boy. I didn't know if I could have that responsibility of letting him be free and not destroying his spirit. And it's so sad, isn't it?
It's awful.
The idea that their joy gets ripped away at such a young age.
And I agree with you. I was so happy that I had girls for the same reason. Having boys scares me, because, as you said, they can't be their whole selves. They can't be their full selves out and about for fear that them laughing or standing in a group with their other male friends doesn't turn into, oh, look, there's a gang looking intimidating on the street. All those things they have to deal with. It's just not fair.
Yeah. Like my nan, my cousin, he lived with my nan when we were kids, and he's a black boy. And in the end, she just used to have all the lads in the house playing music on the decks and emceeing and stuff till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And you look back, and she was a lifeline to them. She was a safe space for them to just be who they were and do what they were doing. And they all say now, like, thank you so much, Brenda, because you stopped us from potentially getting in a lot of trouble by being in that house. For sure. And I think it's safe spaces. We do need to find that. Like, the closing of youth centres really upsets me, because that was another safe space when I was younger for boys.
Oh, I miss them.
They don't exist anymore.
I miss them so much.
Yeah.
It's heavy though, isn't it, though, that thing about black boys? Yeah. And it's So when I do see people like Stormzy or Dave just being fun and being unapologetically them and just owning who they are in the world and being these complex, beautiful black men, I just think yes, all the time. I really do. You
can be loud. You can have, even like things like dropping the stigma around mental illness and being like, I can feel low. I can get depression. I'm not any less a man. I'm not any less black. I always love the thing, Stormzy says about, you're never too big for Adele. You can sit down and sing along to Adele ballad, You're not any less black, not any less of a bad man because you know the words. Sing along, it's good, And, you don't have to be a certain way. You don't have to carry yourself a certain way in this world. And, just be you and be free and be loud and be proud. And I think this, 2020, if anything's there's anything good about 2020, if it could even be said, it has been, I see loads of my black peers, and whether it's colleagues at work or people I talk to, being more themselves, being more comfortable with being their whole selves outside, whether it's at work or when they're out, if they're with their friends and they want to talk loud on the phone or, slip into some patois, they're doing it. I'm like, yes, just be you, because how can people get comfortable with us being us if we're not us?
I know, I'm so over code switching. I say this to Emily all the time. I can't do it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. Exactly. I'm over it. I want to be who I am in my full self. It's why I love the Good Enough Moms Club so much, because they let me be as wild as I need to.
Amazing. Oh my God. But we're better for it. And I don't know, we make this argument all the time, and having a cast that's majority non-white and having representation of disability and class and all of the things, LGBT members of our team, it makes all of us better. Like, that's why it makes me so sad that people haven't felt like they could be their full selves, because we all are better for that diversity in the room, online, in real life. So it's
powerful. Yeah.
So we always talk about so-and-so's mom, like, you know, especially when their kids go to school, you just, I lost my name somewhere and I stopped being Emily and I became Maisie's mom. Hey, Maisie's mom. And when you go to the doctor's, mom. So
not even the Maisie
not
bit,
even the Maisie bit. Just, are you mom? Like, yeah. So we want to know, who do you want to be known as that is not so-and-so's mom?
Oh, that is such an epic question. I would like to be known as that woman who is always up for a laugh, not afraid to try new things, the impulsive one that doesn't follow a crowd and just goes at it. Yeah.
Yes.
Love it. And I think that comes across from you in everything, in the podcast, in the blog.
Good.
Why don't you tell us and tell our audience, you know, where they can find this amazing woman who is herself?
Yeah. So I'm on my blog and on socials as my name. So Tinuke Bernard, which is Tinuke Bernard. So that's on Instagram, on Twitter, sometimes on Facebook, kind of, because you kind of need to, but it's not really
it's
well.
Always that, like,
it's there.
There's two types of people: Facebook people and non-Facebook people.
Exactly. So I'm definitely a non-Facebook person, but I'm on there too, Tinuke Bernard. The blog is tinukebernard.com. The podcast, I have got a new podcast, and it's kind of linked to the directory. It's about looking at the people who are kind of in the directory and people I've met through it, looking at them behind their squares, behind the grid, and it's just called Beyond the Grid with Tinuke. So I'm there as well. It's really new. It's fun, and that's the main places to find me.
Amazing!
Wow. Well,
thank you so much.
It was such great. I really, really enjoyed that chat.
Thank
I feel
you.
full.
It's a nice bit of therapy and just putting the worlds to rights. It's absolutely amazing what you're both doing. Absolutely love to be part of it. Thank you.
I love that chat with Tinuke. She's just got such great energy, and you can follow her on socials by searching Tinuke Bernard on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to check out her blog and the amazing UK Black Influencers Directory.
You can join the Good Enough Mums Club by following us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram by searching Good Enough Mums Club. We'd love it if you can hit that subscribe button for the podcast, rate and review it wherever you listen. And if you know a mum who'd like it, please tell them about it.
And if the stories in this podcast resonate with you or made you think or even just reassured you that you're doing okay as a mum, you will love all the episodes that we've got coming up. Next time we're chatting to one of our actors in the show, the amazing West End singer, performer, alphabet, Galinda, actor, mum, Louise Dearman.
Thanks so much for listening.
Bye.
How will I ever be good enough? When will the loneliness fade? When will it fade away? Why does it have to be so tough?